tiles. You can see I finished off in the corner here, and I come back a couple of rows here. And if you look closely down here, you can see the laser line. See the line from my tile laser? Going straight up the grout line. So you know I'm perfectly lined up with all my tiles. You can see that laser line going straight up there, all the way until it hits the wall. Right there you can see it hitting one of the spacers, and it's also going to hit the wall right there. So that's how I know I'm completely lined up all the way across the room. Now, especially on big tiles like travertine like this with all these holes, see this is natural stone, you really want to make sure you get those all filled in on the back side. That's why I back butter. And you want to make sure you get full coverage so you have 100% of this stone touching cement. Now I'm just going a little bit slower here to show you how it works. Alright, so this is the important step I think everybody gets wrong. When you first put down your thin set, you want to spread it flat with your trowel first before you groove it. That way you make sure you have complete coverage on the floor where the tile is going to go. Okay. Then once you've done that, at a 45-degree angle, you pull away, and I don't even scrape all the way to the floor because I want to leave some at the bottom there. See, like that. So now we're ready for the tile. I'm going to put these little guys in, tighten down the wedges. So now the adjacent tiles are completely flat to one another. Sometimes the wedges will push the tiles away a bit, and when that happens you just got to give it a little love tap. Bring the tile back in a little. Now it's perfectly flat. And of course, don't forget to check level on both directions. Make sure you've got perfectly level tiles. And I always double check against both tiles. Notice how it's not rocking, it's perfectly flat. So that's how I know I'm level across both tiles. And I'll also pull out the bigger level, make sure across 3 tiles here that we're perfectly flat. One other thing I like to do too is I'll take my 5-in-1 tool, which has a little angled, 90-degree angle there, and I'll take this and I scrape it along the edge of the tile, and it forces any extra thin set under the crack. So if there's any voids there, that's a great way to at least fill up to the edge of the tile there. And you scrape it all off there so it's nice and clean for the next tile. Also, if I don't end up tiling right here next, at least it'll be nice and clean and dry there. It won't be clumped up with thin set. Then you simply take your sponge, and you wipe off any excess. Now is the time to do it because you don't want to be spending hours doing it later on. And as I go across each of my tiles here, I always want to make sure that you're level. You always want to use your spirit level there and the little red bullet level over there. And then as I finish each row, you can see I stick my little red spacers in there. Those are 1/8 inch spacers. You don't want to forget to put those in because once the thin set dries, you won't be able to put them in later. So you add these in while they're still wet. The reason we started off this way is because we have multiple trades working in here. The last few days we had electricians over here, we were waiting on plumbers over there. We couldn't wait on the floor, we had to get it started because we have appliances coming. And so we sort of started this way, worked our way back here into the laundry closet, and we're working our way back along the wall. Now that the plumbers are done, we can do back there in that corner, and we'll work our way back out of the kitchen. Okay, so here we have allowed the cement mixture to slake for about 10-15 minutes. That allows the chemical reactions to continue on. So now I'm going to stir it up a little bit more to use it. And so this is the consistency that I'm looking for. Nice and thick. Looks almost like ice, you know, like the icing on the cake or peanut butter. If you make it any soupier than that, your tiles are going to sink down into this thin set. And that you definitely don't want to happen. That's how you get lippage. But of course, since we're using our tile leveling system here, we won't have that problem anyway. So this is my preferred tile leveling system, especially on tiles this large, these 18-inch travertine. These tiles are heavy enough to begin with. They're a 1/2 inch thick, very heavy. And once you lay them in the thin set, they're not coming back up. And if you even try to use a pry bar, you're likely to crack the tile trying to get it back up. So the idea is the second you put it into the thin set, you get these clips and these wedges put into place as quickly as you can. And get each of these tiles adjacent. Get them level to the adjacent tiles. I also back butter every one of my tiles no matter what. From edge to edge, there's thin set on these tiles so that I'm gaining 100% contact. So in fact, the floor tiles that we chipped up before we did this floor, the floor tiles weren't even attached at all to the thin set. They popped right up. And probably because they used too much water in their thin set and they probably let it skin over before they put their tiles down. So they never had a good contact. That's why I always use cement onto the back. Coming back here, you can see I have this grout line here. It's going right across my tile, right across the floor, all the way to the other side of the room. So it's perfect. So you can see I'm perfectly square all the way across the kitchen with this. So I'm very confident in my abilities that I can come anywhere and just drop a tile right here in the middle and it's going to fit perfectly. And all my grout lines are completely straight. So you're probably wondering, well, how do I get my tiles to be nice and flat on the top? That's the most important thing. Have you ever walked into somebody's house and seen uneven, unlevel tiles? That's because it was done by somebody that didn't know what they were doing. And they didn't take the steps, the proper steps to make sure that your tiles are flat from this tile to this tile to this tile. So how do we make that happen? Well, you may have noticed these little wedges I've got all over the place instead of just normal spacers like you see on other people's tile jobs all over the kitchen floor here. You can see I've got all these wedge things, and you go, well, what the heck are these things? Well, this is an interesting floor leveling system that's just absolutely perfect and foolproof. So what happens is, you know how when you put a tile in the thin set there, they can sink sometimes. And so your two tiles next to each other will be at different heights, and that's called lippage. So you would feel like a big curve here. But in this case, we've put our spacers here, and our spacers have these loops on them, as you can see. So it's got that loop there. And as you set each tile into the cement, you stick these spacers into the cement there, and then you run these wedges in between. And you can see the bottom part of the wedge is flat. And by driving the two tiles together with this wedge, it makes them completely, exactly, totally the same level, perfectly flat, absolutely foolproof. You just got to make sure you do it on every one of these junctions here. So let me show you this theory in practice. Okay, so here I'm going to demonstrate for you how this theory of a level tile system works. So I've simulated an extreme case of two tiles where maybe this one was set too far down into the thin set, and so you have this lippage here. So what we're going to do is we put this spacer slash loop, which gives me a perfect 1/8 inch space in between the tiles, see? And you'll still see there's that bit of lippage there, right? So then you take your little wedge and you give it a couple of clicks on your own, and then we use this tool. This here tool is like a giant set of pliers that automatically clicks it in, and you can see that the tiles become pretty close and level. And the more you click it in, the more level they get. And that's how it works. Then once they've dried overnight, you just come by and give them a little up taps on either side with a rubber mallet, and they pop right off. There's another one. And another one. See, just come right out. And if there's any pieces left in, you just scrape them out. And one other thing too, if you'll notice, I'm not doing a grid pattern like everybody else does with their tiles. I'm laying these out in a subway pattern. And yes, you can do a subway pattern with large square tiles, as I've done right here. It's a little bit more work to do, but it will look nicer in the long run. So we actually started tiling right here, right at the edge of the bamboo wood flooring that I had here in the foyer, and I'll make a little transition piece later on. Now I'm using Travertine tiles here, which are very thick, very heavy, 1/2 inch thick stone. And I like to use the larger tiles because they'll make your room look bigger. And I use an 1/8 inch grout line because I can then use a sanded grout. You can only use sanded grout if you're using 1/8 inch or more. So by using a sanded grout, it'll give it more strength. And really, you want to make sure your room is nice and square first before you start tiling. So we measured the halfway points on both walls, and then we created this 90-degree crosshair right here in the middle of the room. And some people want to start right in the middle of the room at that point, but you know, you never know what you're going to get with your tiles, where they're going to end up. Are you going to end up with a full tile or not? Some people want to start way over in the back corner of the room and work their way forward. In my particular case, I decided that we wanted to have 2 full tiles as soon as we enter the kitchen, like that. And then it doesn't matter to me what's on the other side here because all of that's going to be under the cabinet. So I could care less what it looks like at the very end here. And here you can see we have the finished Travertine kitchen floor. That was a lot of hard work. Let me tell you something, back-breaking. And you can see it turned out really nice here. I love my subway tile layout that I did here. It's a lot different than the standard grid outline that most people do with their tiles. And one of the benefits of tiling, folks, is if you can remove your baseboards, you can see here I just tile up fairly close to the wall there. I don't have to be all that accurate. And you just put the baseboards right back on. We're putting on some newer higher end baseboards here. So we don't have to be so accurate right up against the wall. We can be a little sloppy here and there. And also another benefit of that is you won't have to do a grout line there. So we're not going to grout along the edge of the wall there. And this brings up another point too about when you're remodeling a kitchen like we're doing here, anytime you can, even if you have to spend a few extra dollars, it certainly makes sense to go ahead and just tile all the way to the back wall where the cabinets are going to be. Life just goes much easier for you and the next owner of the house later on, many years down the road when they decide to remodel, that if the cabinets are already sitting on the tile and the tiles aren't cemented in right up to the front of the cabinet, that's always a problem for people. And then if you buy new cabinets and you have to try to fit them in, that's going to be an issue for them. So things work out a lot better anytime you can just automatically lay your cabinets right on top of existing tile. It's not a whole lot of extra square feet, maybe a couple of hours extra work, but well worth it. So this is a bottle of sealant that I got, and it also does enhancing. And what the enhancing does is it sort of makes your stone look like it's wet. So it kind of just makes it maybe a touch darker. So here's a little stone that we did it to. And this is after only one layer, but right here in this spot you can sort of see it's a little bit more enhanced than the left side here. So the right side is where we applied it, right here. This side over here doesn't have any at all. And if we do another layer, they say you could do, you know, additional layers if you want it more pronounced. We're going to keep it just subtle like this. And it's very important that with stone like this, anytime you're dealing with travertine or marble or granite or flagstone, any of the natural stones, you must seal them before you grout. Forget about all these other experts and other YouTube videos you might be seeing out there where they say, oh yeah, seal it after you grout it. No, you have to seal it before you grout. And the reason you have to do that, folks, is so that the grout doesn't soak into the edges of your tile and bleed in. So I've said it enough times, hopefully you get the message. You seal before you grout. And it takes a few minutes, you roll it on with a paint roller, and after about 15 minutes or so, you go ahead and you remove it, the excess, with a cloth, and let it sit overnight. They tell you to cure between 24 and 72 hours before you grout. That's why people take the lazy man's route. They don't want to wait the extra days to do what's right. Okay, so one of the acceptable ways to apply this sealant enhancer is with a paint roller. That's what I prefer to do because it gives me max coverage in a short period of time. And I just roll it across the tiles, let it drip down in the sides there too. And after about 15 minutes, you have to let it soak, and it'll absorb into the stone in about 15-20 minutes. You come back and you wipe off any excess with a cloth. It's just that simple. Okay, it might be hard to see it on the camera here, but if you look towards the back, the last 3 rows of tiles there, you can see they've already been enhanced, and you can see they have a slightly darker tone to them than these tiles right up front here, which have not been sealed yet. So you can see it's a little bit darker, sort of brings out the natural veins of the stone. And if you want to put on a second layer, you have to let it dry for about an hour or so, then you apply a second coating, which would probably make it a little more louder. I think I'm going to leave it like this, keep the room as light as possible. And here it is after we just completed sealing it. It's still a little shiny, so we have to give it about 15 minutes or so to dry. And remember, you have to do this about every few years or so. This particular bottle from DuPont is a 5-year rated product. There's others that cost a lot more that will give you more years. But it's important to always keep your stone tile sealed. And especially your granite countertops. A lot of people don't know. You're supposed to seal them every year. But how many people do? And here they are preparing food on them and it's getting all yucky. Sealing the granite is what helps keep all the bacteria and stuff from trying to form on it. The kitchen has tile floors which look like they're in pretty good shape. The cabinets sort of look like they're in good shape, but we're going to show you what happened here at the bottom. These are builder special with particle board, and this is why, folks, you do not ever do particle board cabinets, because that's what happens. So we're going to have to replace all of these cabinets, and you see this a lot in the old condos here in the area. We're going to replace this old grandma style kitchen here with pot lights. So this means our new cabinets are now going to go all the way up. Now we're going to decide whether or not do we want to widen this window a little bit more or put a big counter out on the other side of the pass-through or not. All of these appliances are going to get upgraded to stainless steel for a better look. We're going to have a really nice set of cabinets brought in, all wood. And we're going to get new washer dryer.